Hello, everybody. Today, we are going to look at two movies that came out this November. Now, let's look at the two movies. We're not going to be looking at big gross out movies. So Frozen 2 won't be on here. We're not looking at bombs. So Last Christmas won't be on here. We're not looking at films that came out close to November. We're looking at two really good, not really well-designed movies that came out in November. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood and Knives Out. So, let me go through A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And once that review is done, we will be looking at Knives Out. And once that is done, we'll be out of here. But before I start, I want to meet a friend of mine. I know we've had our differences and you haven't seen him in a while, but him and I have done something to each other, and we've grown out of hating on each other, so everything is perfectly fine. Isn't that right? No, I still hate your channel. He's just saying that, okay? He's funny. I'm not being funny. Your channel sucks still. What? You're funny, okay? It's not funny. Your channel sucks. Okay, give me 1 second. Listen, buddy, I have a good Christmas gift for you. If you're gonna talk like that, you want it? I don't think you want it if you want to talk like that. Well, you could get me a book about how crappy your channel is? Alright. So, yeah, it's fine. He's definitely getting cold. Anyway, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Anybody remember the show Mr. Rogers? Of course we all did. Mr. Rogers was a childhood that pretty much grew with me. It's not my all-time favorite, but definitely one of mine. Okay? I mean, shows like Sesame Street have really gone its ways, but Mr. Rogers does something that those shows can't always do. It's done has the same cool thing over and over again. Gives us so much to think about. And of course, you can't forget, there's that really famous song that we all have grown to love. The song kids can't stop listening to.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beautiful
This song is wonderful.
neighborly day for beauty. Would you be mine?
You can't get enough of it.
I have always wanted to have
You know, all the...
just like you.
Okay, I think I've heard enough.
Wanted to live in
I've heard enough.
neighborhood with you.
Alright, that's a good song, but
Let's make the most of this
I want to stop. Thank you. Anyway, yes, the show is wonderful. And for all the wonderfulness, of course we gotta get a biography movie. Now, last year we did get the movie Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is a documentary on Mr. Rogers. But this time we're actually gonna get a true biography movie on the shows. And today we'll look at it. First, looking at the stars of the movie. What better way to look at a cast by looking at the man himself, Mr. Rogers. Who plays him? Well, the man himself, Tom Hanks. Man, I've always thought this would work. My favorite actor of all time doing the performance of one of my favorite childhood shows of all time. That's just wonderful. And Tom Hanks is no exception. Like, seriously though, having Tom Hanks perform him, okay? Maybe some people just don't match to that idea, but I do. I think it's great performance. He may not act like, or I might even go on my far and say not look like Mr. Rogers, but for a character like him, he certainly does do a good job performing the character, okay? They made him well designed. They didn't make him funny, but they made him wonderful. Okay? I remember back in the 80s, I was always like, seeing a Tom Hanks movie. But times have changed, and now when I see Tom Hanks, I'll be like, but believe me, that certainly is not a bad thing. Tom Hanks has gone from funny to frickin' sad moments, and that's not a bad thing. He can be still funny from time to time, but for most of his time now, he's used his time to be sad, and I like that. I really do. Anybody else in this movie? Well, there is the technically main protagonist, Lloyd Vogel, who is the writer who wants to write for a book, played by Matthew Rhys. Okay? Yep, Matthew Rhys in this movie. How about Chris Cooper in this movie? Okay, I've seen enough. They actually got some good Oscar actors for this movie. This movie definitely has to win an Oscar. I'm sure it will. Anyway, Tom Hanks does a good job. While it would still be fun to see Fred Rogers do Fred himself in this movie, I'm afraid that ain't possible. But if it was, it would be good. Tom Hanks, however, still does a good job. Now, let's look at what the movie is trying to do for us. What is it trying to do for us? It's trying to give us a special kind of story. Let's see what kind of story it would give us. But first, we're going to see the kind of emotion we can get from this movie. Well, this movie can get sad from time to time. You can get happy from time to time. You can get kind of confused from time to time. Moments like that just go by fast. Like I said earlier, this movie mainly follows the story of Lloyd Vogel because he's the one who has stuff in this movie. Mr. Rogers is just the guy who is playing Mr. Rogers, which is more popular. I'm sorry, Matthew. Anyway, we're supposed to get sad sometimes in this movie, and that works because there are moments that really seem to get through a lot of emotion, like when characters die, when sad things happen, when breakups come up. This is what this movie does. But believe it or not, Mr. Rogers actually had that in his show. Yeah. But let me tell you something. He talks about these sad things, and he does it so well. I mean, I had never seen another show back then do something so well, talking about the saddest things. I mean, remember when Barney had to talk about only happy things? Yeah, I did not like that. Mr. Rogers doesn't do that. They always put up any kind. Sesame Street does that too. And when you see Sesame Street, you get happy all the time. You just feel one emotion when the show goes through many emotions. With Mr. Rogers, you can feel anything, and you'll still love the show. I mean, movies that Tom Hanks had, like The Green Mile, Forrest Gump, or Philadelphia, are sad as hell. This ain't always sad, but it ain't always happy either. Such a big movie. But once you finish seeing the film, you get all those emotions out, and you'll be perfect. That's what Mr. Rogers taught me. I mean, if I went, it'd be fun to see him. He's just... God, I miss him. This show was so wonderful. And when this movie puts up its emotion, you would enjoy it a lot. Now, would you enjoy the story? Well, how about you ask him? Tell him the story. The story is about a man who owns a show and the cousin doesn't like it, then he writes a novel at the end. I'll tell you the truth. That kind of is true. It opens with the show itself and talks about Lloyd Vogel. He had a rough time as a man. Like, he's been doing a lot of bad things. He has a real problem with his family, all of his friends, and everything in him. But he is forced to write a novel about Mr. Rogers, even though he isn't a big fan of Mr. Rogers. Now, let me tell you something. This is actually kind of similar to a Tom Hanks movie. Ever heard of Saving Mr. Banks? That is a biography about Walt Disney doing Mary Poppins, and the woman hates the idea. So, things happen. But here's different. It's different a lot. The characters all have their stuff and all that. But here's the thing. It's perfect. I mean, he doesn't want to write a novel, but he meets Mr. Rogers and things come up not very well. So, what does that mean? Well, we see characters all interact in ways possible. Like, for example, I mean, remember the Daniel Tiger puppet? Man, that was fun to watch in the show. Well, they show him too, and Wood finds all the stuff that goes on the show, and he's all like, God, this show is just overrated. But that's the case here. Because one thing for sure, he can't get enough of it, and he's still having a rough time. He has nightmares and all that. He tries to interact with Mr. Rogers, and they grow a relationship. And he even lets him meet the family, and it's all fun relations. Well, anything else I should bring up? Well, there's death in the movie. This movie's very PG, and there's death. And, okay, like, and I know, I like this idea, too. Because back then, PG movies had a different meaning. I wonder if they're going with that meaning again. Like, remember how Rocky was PG, but that film had big emotion? I like that they're going back to that. It's fun, the nostalgia and all that. This movie puts up a good story and very well written. So, what do I think of this movie? It's a pretty good story with all of its wonderful tale, wonderful history, all of that. And the fact that Tom Hanks is actually related to Mr. Rogers, as he just figured out. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I wish I was kidding. I wish I was kidding. But I ain't. Now, we're done with that movie. Let's look at the next movie on this list. Knives Out. This is not a knife, but I am 14. I can't show a knife on screen. But yes, Knives Out. This movie was big doing a really good job for reviews. So how does it hold up for me? Well, we're going to do first thing, look at the stars. This movie has a really good cast. Our first cast member is Daniel Craig. Yep, Daniel Craig, the modern James Bond. Who else? How about Chris Evans? Yep, Steve Rogers. How about Jamie Lee Curtis? Yep, that very badass old woman. How about Christopher Plummer? How about Toni Collette? Lakeith Stanfield? Michael Shannon? Don Johnson? Yeah, frick, this movie has it all. Knives Out has a perfectly star, as this is the perfectly done whodunit film. And you know what? I like those kind of movies. Like, you know, it's kind of like something you see from a movie like Clue or something like that. They even reference it in the movie. Anyway, the casting is really well, as all the characters have a perfect performance, whether you be funny or upsetting or mysterious. This movie knows what it is. And one thing for sure, Frank Oz is in this movie playing himself. Yep, that's the case. I think I just enough of that. But yes, that's true. Frank Oz in this movie. Isn't it wonderful? Certainly is. Frank Oz really is doing a good job with his performance, and so is everybody else. They all just perform as the characters they are, and be even funnier along the way. And it's a British kind of movie, so they, of course, get some British in them, but that's kind of what they do. They do have that characteristic, and I like that. They're choosing characters with the characteristic they want, and that's perfect. It's really good. Now let's look at the tone of the film. What's the tone of the film? Well, there are tones of this film. There's comedy and there's mystery. Let's look at those tones of the film. What is the comedy of this movie? Well, the jokes are pretty well done, and some of the stuff you get a laugh out. Like, for example, I mean, Chris Evans gets a laugh out of you, or, I don't know, Jamie Lee Curtis can get a few laughs out of you. Pretty much all these characters know how funny they can be. It's a really fun movie. Like, I mean, you don't see very good comedies these days. Then you see Knives Out. Well, some of the jokes in this movie have a little bit of a... because there really aren't any jokes in this film. There's just stuff that can make you laugh. That's what changed. Whatever, though. This movie still does a good job with that. How about its mystery? Well, it does do a good job. I mean, mystery films are fun. This one is part of that idea, as it is a very fun film. But none of that can work well So, what about the story of the movie? The story of murder. Let's look at that murder. Again, this is one of those whodunit films. So, a person gets killed at the beginning, and there's a whole gang trying to find out who did it, as they get some fellas to help out. Now, the question is, who did it?
They all did it.
I wish, God. I wish. No, one of them is the murderer, the one who had the knife and stabbed. As the whole movie is on them trying to find clues, but big clues. Blues Clues. I'm just kidding. I talked about Mr. Rogers and I got childhood in me now. Anyway, yep, that's what they do. So, who did at the end? Well, while things go by fast, the clues have been finally determined, as the person who did it is no other than Ransom Dreisner. That's it. Chris Evans did it. He's the murderer. He's the one who killed them all, as he literally admits it at the end. Grabs a knife and tries to stab. He gets a fake knife, and then he is put in prison, and the day is saved. Hooray! Anything else I gotta bring up? Well, reference to clues in this movie, because this movie basically goes with that idea. And it's a cool house, some cool nostalgia, really fun stuff, and yes, the good actors themselves. So, is Knives Out great? Yup. Better than Mr. Rogers? Yup. Better than Toy Story 4? No, I don't know. Endgame? I don't know. But this movie still does a really good job what it's doing, and it certainly is something I have to recommend to those who love a good mystery, or those who love a good movie. And I do. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will be on my way now, and Christmas is coming. I won't post another video until then.